With the Royal Rumble on the horizon, is Cody Rhodes about to return at the premium live event? We have the very latest on Cody Rhodes' return from injury from his torn pectoral muscle, plus Becky Lynch in the MCU. She did film a scene, but it got scrapped. From which movie? We'll talk about that. Tegan Nox is back on Friday Night SmackDown, making her return last night. Sami Zayn is acknowledged by the Usos in the Bloodline. We have the winner of the SmackDown World Cup to challenge Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, Robert Roode, undergoes serious surgery on his neck. Charlotte Flair teases an upcoming return to WWE. Lacey Evans is being repackaged again. We have the latest on WWE's next trip to India. Also, the very first entrant in the men's 2023 Royal Rumble match. And Kurt Angle returns to SmackDown next week for a birthday celebration. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So let's start off talking about the American Nightmare himself, Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes, of course, made a big return to WWE on the first night of WrestleMania 38 back in April, defeating Seth freaking Rollins in an impromptu match. However, 2 months into his comeback, unfortunately, the American Nightmare was ruled out of action indefinitely after suffering a torn pectoral muscle tear. Despite the setback, though, Rhodes successfully performed in his advertised Hell in a Cell match against Seth Rollins at the namesake event. The former Intercontinental Champion has yet to return to WWE programming since being written off of TV on the following edition of Monday Night Raw, where he was attacked by Rollins. But a fresh update on his recovery has provided some insight into how close Rhodes is to being back inside the squared circle. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Rhodes' recovery is going well. It's said that the former AEW EVP has been working heavily with some top-level trainers to gain size and strength in a bid to weigh 240 pounds. A very specific number, upon his return to WWE. The report added that Rhodes is back to normal in regard to his training and gym work. Despite the apparent progress, there's still no word on Rhodes' return date. However, the Wrestling Observer newsletter speculates that WWE will want to keep Rhodes' return a surprise, which would seemingly point to a likely comeback at an event such as the Royal Rumble. Rhodes could enter the men's Rumble match as a surprise participant. Interestingly, the report suggests that Rhodes' natural return to television could reignite his feud with Seth Rollins. However, this might be quite difficult now for WWE, because if Rhodes returns as a babyface, Rollins is now also a babyface. So are we going to have two babyfaces squaring off, or will Rollins turn before Rhodes returns to the company? We'll have to wait and see. Now, an interesting other story when it comes to Cody Rhodes actually regards Kevin Owens and Survivor Series War Games. Of course, KO was revealed as the fifth and final member announced for the Brawling Brutes War Games team for the Survivor Series bout against the Bloodline. Now, the War Games match, of course, consists of two teams thrashing it out inside two rings inside of a steel cage. Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, is credited as the creator of the match type, which was used originally in Jim Crockett Promotions in the NWA, and later in WCW and now WWE. Survivor Series War Games 2022 saw the match move to the main roster after 5 years on NXT's annual live event schedule. Kevin Owens paid tribute to Dusty Rhodes with his ring gear by wearing a red bionic elbow pad and a t-shirt with Rhodes on it. In his latest appearance on After the Bell with Corey Graves, Owens recalled the conversation he had with Dusty's son Cody Rhodes prior to the event, saying, quote, "To be part of the first one on the main roster, I took the opportunity to wear Dusty's shirt and the red elbow pad as a tribute to him. I talked to Cody beforehand and made sure he was cool with it and everything. It was just always neat to be able to tie back to history and give Dusty a little nod. I tried to do that as much as I can." Now, talking about War Games as well, an update has emerged on WWE's plans for War Games following Survivor Series 2022. Speaking with Kevin Owens on After the Bell, announcer Corey Graves noted that following the success of Survivor Series War Games, WWE has been discussing how to better utilize the stipulation. Graves said, quote, "You've, Kevin Owens, competed inside War Games twice. It was my first time getting to call War Games. Obviously, the first time it happened on the main roster. Monday morning, full disclosure to everybody, Kevin Patrick was there. We had a meeting as we do before Monday Night Raw each and every week. And there was questions asked as to how do we improve War Games? How do we tweak War Games? Because this was the first rollout. We got the men's and the women's all in the same night. There was a lot happening. It's very difficult to differentiate two of the same style matches within the same card. Kudos to all 20 people involved because that's exactly what happened successfully. It was a very exciting conversation to be part of because everybody across the board went, cool, Saturday night was a success, how do we make it better? So certainly that's quite interesting. When it comes back to Cody Rhodes, though, I expect him to return at the Royal Rumble. I expect him to be one of the favorites to win it. I mean, it all depends on what WWE wants to do when it comes to WrestleMania. Logically, it would make sense for Rhodes to return and win, and then maybe he can challenge Roman Reigns, but at the same time, there's rumors that The Rock's going to return, and The Rock's going to win the Rumble, and The Rock's going to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Now, that match doesn't need to be for the title, it must be said, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think coming out of WrestleMania, there's a likelihood that the WWE and Universal Championships will be split, and if that is the case, then you would say, logically, Cody Rhodes being the WWE Champion on Monday Night Raw makes a ton of sense. That's why, ultimately, he says anyway, he came back to WWE, was to win the big one, to win the championship that Dusty Rhodes never could, that being the WWE title, and I expect that to be the case. Now, Becky Lynch in the MCU has been one of these reports and rumors that's been around for such a long period of time, at least for the last 2 years that I can recall. Now, this comes from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, and actually he confirms that Becky Lynch had indeed filmed a Marvel role, but we never saw it. Now, Becky Lynch made a great impression portraying Cyndi Lauper on Young Rock, but this isn't the only on-screen role that she's had as of late. Separate from her voice role in Rumble and her film debut in The Marine 6, Fightful Select is reporting that in 2021, and they actually reported this, I believe at the time, that Becky Lynch was cast for a Marvel movie. Rumors had emerged that Becky Lynch would be appearing in a Marvel film, but details were few and far between. In late 2021, Fightful had it confirmed that Lynch did indeed have a role, but nobody connected to Marvel would confirm it on the record. After speaking with sources at Marvel, they were told, unfortunately, as of now, her scenes have been left on the cutting room floor, something writer Chris Tapley had actually recently tweeted about. Fightful is reporting that they were told that the role was for Marvel's Eternals in a post-credit scene to set up something for a future installment. Now, they're not sure exactly what the role was specifically, even though the post-credit scene ended up being nixed. They're told that the possibility of using Becky Lynch in future films is not out of the question. In 2022, Becky confirmed having conversations with Marvel, but not that she'd actually filmed for the movie. Marvel sources that Fightful spoke to said they were happy with the portrayal. One person with knowledge of the situation claimed that the post-credit scene was, quote, too depressing, but they didn't gain any additional context. Another source indicated that pop star Harry Styles would have been involved in her scene as he played Star Fox during the scene, of course, the scene that did actually air at the end of that film with Pip the Troll as well, setting up a future installment of the Eternals. Now, it must be said, the future of Marvel Eternals in general is in doubt due to mixed reviews and an underwhelming box office performance. The release date, of course, was pushed back multiple times as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fightful did reach out to both Marvel and Becky Lynch for comments on the story, but they weren't able to get anything on the record. I watched The Eternals. It wasn't great. I don't think it's as bad as people say it was. It wasn't great, though. There were clearly issues with it. The post-credit scene... My biggest issue with the post-credit scene in Eternals, actually, is that the CGI on Pip the Troll is some of the worst CGI Marvel has ever done. And I know that's covering a lot, especially at the moment with some of these Disney Plus shows. But as far as what she could be, I don't know. As when they're saying, too depressing, I mean, it would have to be, I guess, some Eternal, which, is a lot. There's a lot of them, and setting up a future film. Ultimately, I do think the Eternals will return. I don't think Marvel will be too scared off. I think there are plans for a second film, and I think we will see changes to it. But it'll be interesting to know what that role would have been, if they're going to revisit that in the future. There's still a possibility they could. Most of the time, when they sign people to contracts, Marvel, they're multiple picture contracts, so it might be a case of they have the option to use her in the future. But I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in the future. But certainly, it's very, very interesting. Tegan Nox is back. Tegan Nox is the latest former WWE or released WWE star to return to the company. Tegan Nox is officially back in WWE. Nox made her surprise return during last night's edition of SmackDown, saving Liv Morgan from an attack by Damage Control. There had been reports previously that WWE was interested in bringing her back. Things started to pick up more steam when Michael Cole did mention her name during the Survivor Series War Games event, which many fans noticed and we spoke about here on the channel. Now Nox is back and ready to pick up where she left off. Of course, she was released from WWE just over a year ago. She'd been brought up to the main roster, joining SmackDown in a tag team alongside Shotzi, but the partnership was short-lived. She got drafted to Raw, and she never made an appearance for the brand. In her time since her release, she was completely inactive in the wrestling world, which led to some people speculating that she'd actually retired. Now, she later debunked those rumors by revealing that the reason for her absence was actually way more complicated. She had trouble getting her visa, which legally prevented her from wrestling or even coming back to the United States if she decided to leave. It seems now that situation is resolved. Usually, if you've got a sponsor like a WWE, it can get done very, very, very quickly. Obviously, she had major success in NXT. Triple H is a big fan. And now Tegan Nox is back in WWE, just the latest name to return to the company. And I guess it's a welcome one for SmackDown because the SmackDown Women's Division is just completely flat at the moment. So Tegan Nox, will she rejuvenate that? I'm not sure, but it looks like she's going to pick up her feud with Dakota Kai and Damage Control, and leading to a Liv Morgan and Tegan Nox tag team to face off against Io Sky and Dakota Kai, seemingly. Speaking of SmackDown, last night's show opened up with a segment from the Bloodline, and to kick off SmackDown, the Bloodline, including Sami Zayn, took the microphone to discuss their victory at War Games, with the crowd chanting Sami Uso, one of the only things they chanted during the night. The crowd was horrible. Both Jimmy and Jay gave glowing reviews of Sami Zayn and his impact in the Survivor Series War Games match, with Jay Uso in the segment going as far to say the win at War Games was because of Sami Zayn. Obviously, Solo Sikoa was not amused or particularly interested in any of it. However, he did remain at ringside. They then had a match where Sami Zayn faced off against Sheamus, and because of assistance from the Bloodline, particularly Jay Uso, Sami Zayn got the victory. So Sami Zayn and the Bloodline seemingly are reunited and aligned perfectly, although there was a backstage segment later on where they confirmed that next Friday on SmackDown there'll be an undisputed tag team title match between the Usos if they beat Riddle and Elias on Monday Night Raw this coming week. They'll face them, as I mentioned, for the tag team championships, and Jimmy and Jay sort of said, hey, or Jimmy said to Jay, what about Sami lying to your face? And he said, well, Roman said he looked into his eyes and that was fine. So seeds still being planted there. Last night we saw Ricochet win the SmackDown World Cup. It's the only World Cup that the USA are going to win. Certainly they've got the Netherlands today. But Ricochet defeated Mexico's Santos Escobar in the final of the SmackDown World Cup this week in Buffalo, New York. Midway through the match, the referees asked the rest of Legado del Fantasma, including Zelina Vega on commentary, to leave the ringside area, leveling the playing field for Ricochet in a one-on-one contest. Eventually, Ricochet hit a 630 splash on Escobar for the pinfall victory. With the victory, Ricochet earned a title shot against Intercontinental Champion Gunther. After his victory, just as Ricochet celebrated with the SmackDown World Cup trophy, he would be confronted by Gunther and the rest of Imperium. It was subsequently confirmed by Michael Cole on commentary that the Ricochet vs. Gunther title bout will take place on the December 16 episode of SmackDown from Chicago, Illinois. Ricochet had unsuccessfully challenged Gunther for the Intercontinental title on the June 24 episode of SmackDown, which was incidentally Gunther's first title defense after he captured the title from Ricochet on June 10. So, look, Ricochet is not going to win this match, I don't think. I think that I wouldn't even be surprised if originally the plans were for Braun Strowman to win it. They're building clearly towards Braun Strowman versus Gunther. Whether that's going to be at the Rumble, I'm not sure. They even had last night Braun Strowman kind of chase off Imperium or level the playing field in Gunther's victory over Kofi Kingston. So they're still clearly building towards Gunther versus Strowman, but this will be a nice diversion, and it's a good win for Ricochet, certainly. Robert Roode. There's been lots of discussion recently about Robert Roode being close to an in-ring return. Well, that's really not the case now, because WWE star Robert Roode underwent neck fusion surgery this week and is now on the road to recovery toward his potential in-ring return. Roode took to Instagram to share an uplifting post-surgery update, through which he thanked his doctors and his wife, while stressing he's looking forward to the challenge of resuming his pro wrestling career, saying, quote, "Big thank you to Dr. Andy Cordova and his amazing staff at Andrew Sports Medicine and St. Vincent's Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. C5-6 fusion is complete. Now the work begins. Recovery and rehabilitation. Looking forward to the challenge. And thank you to his wife. You are the best." Now, while responding to the post, scores of WWE superstars and other wrestlers from around the world sent their best wishes to Rude. Back in September, Rude revealed he underwent a medical procedure at the same hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. He didn't provide any further details on the procedure, and subsequently, Rude was backstage for the November 11 episode of SmackDown in Indianapolis, and in a follow-up report from Fightful Select, it noted that Rude was getting closer to an in-ring return. Furthermore, Rude also participated in a photo shoot featuring WWE superstars supporting their teams in the ongoing FIFA World Cup, which made many to believe that the veteran wrestler would be nearing a comeback in the squared circle. One can assume, seemingly, that Rude's issues flared up again, which required him to undergo neck fusion surgery. The typical recovery time for a pro wrestler to return from said surgery is between 9 to 12 months, and it depends on several factors. In past, the likes of Steve Austin, Edge, Tyson Kidd, Nikki Bella, Tommaso Ciampa, and Trent Beretta underwent neck/spinal fusion surgeries and were sidelined for significant periods of time. Kidd, of course, was forced to retire due to the severity of his injury. Here's hoping that won't be the case for Robert Roode. But look, it's very, very serious. It's a really serious surgery, and here's hoping he can recover in the future. Absolutely. I think that clearly he underwent this procedure, maybe less invasive procedure in the summer. They thought that might be enough. He trained for a return, maybe took some bumps and just said, look, I think I'm going to have the surgery. Or the doctors took another look and said, no, it's not worked in the way we wanted. You're going to have to undergo the surgery. And that's a shame. So here's hoping he can return to the ring, or at the very least have a quality of life. Charlotte Flair is another person seemingly nearing an in-ring return. She hasn't been seen on WWE programming in 7 months, ever since losing her SmackDown Women's Championship to Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania Backlash in an I Quit match. With the Royal Rumble around the corner, however, many fans are expecting her to return to WWE imminently, and it's not been uncommon for stars to make their surprise returns in the Rumble match. And we now know that her lengthy absence hasn't stopped Flair from training. On December 2nd, Flair showed a photo on her Instagram story of herself training with NXT's Alba Fire and Zoe Stark. Fire, of course, holds the record as the longest reigning NXT UK Women's Champion. Stark recently turned heel as well. She's feuding with Nikita Lyons too. And it would imply, seemingly, that she's training for this in-ring return. So don't be surprised if Charlotte Flair shows up at the Rumble, or even sooner than that. Lacey Evans, another name that's set for a return, is getting back to basics and is being repackaged again. Last night on SmackDown, a vignette aired showing Evans undergoing a rigorous training session with her fellow United States Marine Corps, with a voice in the background suggesting that Evans got, quote, lost in the crowd with the whiners and the weak, but now she was ready to revert back to her roots. The vignette ended with several Marines urging Evans to get back to her feet after she fell on the floor during a training drill. Something had to change, the narrator said towards the end of the vignette. A Mustang gets a tune-up, a boxer goes to training camp, a Marine goes back to basics. WWE is yet to announce the date for Evans' return to in-ring action. Evans had teased a character change after the November 11 episode of the Blue Brand Show, where she lost the six-pack challenge to determine the number one contender to Ronda Rousey's SmackDown Women's Championship. Following her loss, a dismayed Evans told Kathy Kelly in a backstage interview she was done trying to please everybody and vowed no longer to be comfortable in the glitz and glamour and the lifestyle that comes with being a WWE superstar. Now, I mentioned she has had a hell of a year because she returned to WWE programming after giving birth to her second child, introducing a new heel persona that saw her belittling fans for not being able to relate to her experiences as a United States Marine, triumphs and childhood tragedies, even though in the build-up to all of this, she was clearly being a babyface, then she was a heel, but then she would revert once again to a babyface character during the Money in the Bank ladder match qualifying match against Xia Li on the June 10 episode of SmackDown. And then in July, she turned heel again by attacking her tag team partner, Aaliyah. Before that, she was a sassy Southern Belle. She has been repackaged, it feels like, 1,000,000 times. I don't know what the character is. Whatever this one is, just stick with it. That's what I would plead. Just stick with it. We have an update on WWE's next big live event in India. It had been rumoured about this actually heavily, hadn't it? About WWE going over to India next year. And according to PW Insider, WWE will indeed be making its return to India in 2023, with the event on the calendar for next month, Wednesday, January 18 to be precise. Talent from SmackDown is scheduled for the trip. So once again, I don't know if this is this big stadium show that's being rumoured, but it's going to be happening next month in January. So keep an eye out for official announcements on that. We have the first entrant confirmed for the men's Royal Rumble match this year. On SmackDown last night, Kofi Kingston, in a backstage interview, declared he would be in the men's Royal Rumble match. And he's got some making up to do, to be honest, because he was in it last year. And for the first time, I mean, Kofi Kingston has done incredible spots, amazing spots in the Royal Rumble match. It's like a highlight reel. It's a human highlight reel of the stuff he's done and incredible spots, but he botched it. For the first time last year, he botched the spot. I think he was meant to land on like the barricade, and he missed. He missed. His feet touched the floor, and he was out. So here's hoping he can do it better this year. Finally, Kurt Angle will be back on SmackDown next week. It's been announced that WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle will be making his return on next week's December 9 edition of SmackDown. The show will emanate from Angle's hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he'll be appearing for a birthday celebration. So Angle, of course, I think he last appeared on WWE programming earlier this year on Raw, once again, when they're in Pittsburgh. So he's going to be back in Pittsburgh once again, this time for a birthday celebration. So it'll be great to see our Olympic hero. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.